I never thought a simple Saturday afternoon could turn my world upside down, but there I was, standing in my bedroom, staring at the pink dress my sister had left hanging on the closet door. The fabric was soft, almost delicate, with a frilly hem and ribbons that swayed lightly in the breeze from the open window. I could feel my heart racing just looking at it. This was my sister Lily's dress, one she had worn for countless school events and birthday parties, and now it was my turn. I, Alex, had always been a fairly average guy. I went to college, had a few close friends, and, of course, tried to keep my private life private. My secret fascination with dressing in women's clothes had always been something I indulged in quietly, late at night, when no one was around. I had experimented a little, some shirts, leggings, a skirt or two, but I had never gone this far. And certainly never at home, under the watchful eye of my family. But Dad, in his usual domineering way, had decided it was time I learned a lesson. It all started when I had accidentally ruined one of Dad's expensive shirts last week. I had spilled coffee on it while rushing out to meet Emma, my girlfriend. Emma had been excited for a little shopping trip, but I was late, flustered, and clumsy as always. Dad, of course, had been furious. His solution was unusual, to say the least. He had marched into my room with a stern look and pointed at Lily's dress. "Wear this for the day," he said sharply. "Maybe you'll appreciate how responsible people take care of their things." I had wanted to protest, to argue, to explain that it wasn't fair, but his eyes held no room for negotiation. I had ended up in my room, clutching the dress, my stomach churning with a mixture of fear, embarrassment, and curiosity. The room around me was familiar, almost cozy. My desk was cluttered with textbooks, my laptop open to a half-finished essay, and the posters on the wall reminded me that this was my personal space, a space where I could retreat into my own world. But today, the comfort of my room felt like a cage. The pink dress seemed to taunt me, dangling in front of my eyes, daring me to step into it. My hands shook as I lifted it from the hanger. I had to admit, there was something exciting about it. Something that made my heart race and my mind spin. I had never felt this conflicted before. On one hand, I was terrified, afraid of how Dad would react if I refused, or worse, if I failed to perform as he imagined. On the other, I was strangely drawn to the sensation of wearing it, imagining how it would feel against my skin, how I would look in the mirror, how Emma or anyone might see me if I dared to step outside like this.
Emma.
The thought of her made my chest tighten. She knew me well, but she didn't know this side of me. I had always been careful, keeping my secret life separate from my daytime existence. What would she think if she saw me like this? Embarrassed?
Confused?
Or maybe, just maybe, curious? The thought made my pulse quicken and my cheeks heat up. Taking a deep breath, I unzipped my hoodie and carefully stepped out of my jeans. The cool air brushed against my skin, and I felt a shiver of anticipation. I slipped into the dress, fumbling slightly with the ribbons and hem. The fabric was soft against my chest and arms, surprisingly comfortable, though I felt utterly exposed. I caught my reflection in the mirror and froze. There I was, a familiar face, yet transformed. The dress hugged my frame in ways I had never experienced, accentuating lines and curves I hadn't paid attention to before. I stared at myself for a long moment, trying to reconcile the mix of emotions flooding through me. Part of me was ashamed, embarrassed to be standing like this, forced into something so foreign by Dad's insistence. Another part of me was exhilarated. The way the dress swished around my legs, the gentle sway of the ribbons, the subtle shift in my posture, it felt like stepping into another world, one where I was both vulnerable and strangely powerful. A knock on my door startled me. "Alex, you ready yet?" Dad's voice boomed from the hallway. I swallowed hard, smoothing the fabric of the dress over my chest and hips. "Yeah, almost," I mumbled, trying to steady my voice. He didn't respond, but I could hear his footsteps retreating. The house was quiet again, the ticking of the clock on my wall suddenly deafening. I knew this wasn't just about the dress. It was about control, about testing boundaries, about seeing how far I could be pushed, and how I would respond. I glanced at my phone on the desk. Emma had sent a message earlier, asking if I wanted to meet up after lunch. I hadn't replied. How could I? There was no way I could show up like this. Not yet. Not without risking everything. And yet, the thought of seeing her, even from a distance, made my heart ache with longing. The mirror reflected my hesitation, the duality of my existence staring back at me. On one side, Alex, the typical guy, the college student, the son. On the other, someone completely different. Someone daring, fragile, yet strangely alive in ways I hadn't allowed myself to explore. I didn't know how long I stood there, caught between fear and fascination. But one thing was clear. Today would change me. Whether I liked it or not, whether I succeeded or faltered, whether Dad was proud or angry, this day would mark a new chapter in my life. The dress wasn't just fabric. It was a doorway into a world I had never fully dared to enter. Taking a final deep breath, I adjusted the hem one last time and smoothed my hair, trying to look as composed as possible. I could hear Dad returning, footsteps growing closer. My stomach twisted, my pulse quickened, but I squared my shoulders. Whatever came next, I was going to face it. The door creaked open, and Dad's eyes met mine. There was no smile, no comment, just a silent assessment. Then, in his typical blunt manner, he said, "Good. Now come downstairs. Your sister's friends are coming over, and you're going to help them with the decorations. No excuses." I nodded, swallowing hard. The reality of my situation hit me fully. I was about to step into the living room, fully dressed in my sister's pink dress, with her friends all around. The thought made my face flush, my hands tremble, but also, unexpectedly, sent a thrill racing through me. This was my first test, my first real challenge. And whether I realized it or not, it was only the beginning. The living room was already bustling with activity when I stepped out of my room. Lily's friends had arrived early, chattering and laughing as they unpacked streamers, balloons, and other decorations for her birthday party. The sight of them made my chest tighten. I was painfully aware of every inch of the pink dress clinging to me. Every step felt heavier, like walking on fragile ice. My hands instinctively smoothed the hem, trying to look natural, trying to act as though this was something I did every day. Dad gave me a nod from across the room, a silent command to get started. I swallowed hard and approached the group, who barely noticed me at first, absorbed in their task. But then, one of them looked up.
"Oh,
"You're helping too?" one of Lily's friends said with a smile, not realizing the storm of embarrassment I was barely holding back. I nodded, forcing a tight-lipped smile, and reached for a box of balloons. My hands trembled slightly as I pulled out the rubber spheres, the satin of the dress brushing against my legs, making me hyper-aware of the difference between my usual jeans and this delicate outfit. As I worked, I couldn't help but feel a mixture of fear and exhilaration. Each movement felt different, each step more deliberate. The heels Lily had left on the floor for me added a wobbly, unfamiliar rhythm to my gait. I was painfully conscious of the weight of the fabric, the sway of the skirt, and the way my reflection caught in the windows every time I passed by. The girls didn't comment, but their glances were inevitable. I could sense curiosity flicker in their eyes. Did they know? Could they tell? The thought made my stomach twist. I had always been careful, hidden behind my usual masculine clothing, safe in my identity as Alex. Now every gesture, every small movement, was under scrutiny, whether I wanted it or not. I found myself retreating slightly, trying to make myself small while still helping. My fingers fumbled with the ribbons on the balloons, tying them together as I fought to keep my breathing even. The thrill of being out in the open, fully dressed in my sister's clothes, was intoxicating, yet terrifying. My mind raced with 1,000 questions. What if someone laughed? What if Dad thought I wasn't taking it seriously? What if Emma found out? And then there was the mirror. The large hallway mirror reflected me every time I turned my head. I couldn't help but glance at it, catching sight of myself in the dress. There was something almost hypnotic about the reflection, the combination of vulnerability and unexpected confidence. My chest heaved slightly, not from fear alone, but from the strange excitement coursing through me. I looked like Lily, yet not. I was Alex, transformed, and the duality of it both thrilled and frightened me. Dad's voice broke my thoughts. "Alex, make sure the streamers are straight. I don't want this looking messy." The command was sharp, leaving no room for excuses. I nodded quickly, focusing on my task. The pressure of doing it perfectly, combined with the surreal reality of wearing this dress in front of everyone, created a tense cocktail of fear and exhilaration. As I worked, memories of my secret crossdressing at home crept in. The hours I had spent experimenting with makeup, skirts, and wigs flashed in my mind. Those moments were safe, private, controlled. This was none of that. This was public, immediate, and charged with high stakes. I felt exposed in a way I had never experienced before. And yet, there was an undeniable thrill to it, a strange liberation in being seen, even if under coercion. One of Lily's friends, a tall girl named Megan, glanced my way. "Nice dress," she said casually, not knowing the effect her words would have. My face flushed. I mumbled a thanks and continued tying the balloons, trying to ignore the way her comment echoed in my mind. Every compliment, every glance was magnified. I felt both scrutinized and oddly validated, caught in a whirlwind of emotions that left me dizzy. By the time we moved on to the decorations, I had become hyper-aware of every sensation. The scratch of the fabric against my arms, the wobble of the heels, the way my legs felt exposed when I reached up to hang streamers, each movement was a reminder of my dual existence. I was Alex, helping with a party, but also Alex transformed, navigating an unfamiliar identity that demanded attention and caution. Midway through the decorations, I heard a laugh from the corner. Lily's friends were teasing one another about silly things, oblivious to the storm inside me. But every laugh, every light-hearted comment, made my anxiety spike. What if someone noticed my hands shaking? What if my posture betrayed my nervousness? I tried to focus on the task, forcing myself to mimic casual confidence. Then, the unthinkable happened. My heel caught on the edge of the carpet, and I stumbled, barely catching myself on the table. A gasp escaped me before I could control it. Megan's eyes widened, and I felt my face burn hotter than ever. "Are you okay?" she asked, concern lacing her tone. I nodded quickly, mumbling that I was fine, but the damage was done. I had drawn attention, and the panic bubbled inside me. Retreating to straighten the streamers, I tried to calm myself, taking deep breaths. The adrenaline surged through my body, heightening every sensation. The swish of the skirt with each step, the delicate fabric against my legs, the unfamiliar pressure of the heels, all combined into a heightened awareness I had never experienced before. My secret self was no longer hidden. It was alive, exposed, and pulsing with energy. By the time Dad called us for a break, I was drenched in sweat from nerves and exertion. I excused myself to the bathroom, desperate for privacy. Locking the door, I leaned against the cool tile, my reflection in the mirror staring back at me. The dress clung to me in ways that were both foreign and thrilling. My hands trembled as I touched the fabric, feeling the texture, imagining what it would be like if Emma saw me like this. The intensity of the moment overwhelmed me. I had never felt so exposed, so alive, so caught between fear and desire. I realized then that this was no longer just a punishment from Dad. It was a revelation, a confrontation with a side of myself I had kept hidden for too long. The pink dress, the heels, the delicate ribbons, they were not just clothes. They were a doorway to a world of emotion and sensation I had barely dared to explore. As I rejoined the others, I tried to mask my inner turmoil with a smile. But the truth was, every step, every movement, every glance in my direction reminded me of the secret life I had been living in private. And now, for the first time, it was out in the open. The rest of the afternoon passed in a blur of decorations, laughter, and near misses. Every moment was a delicate balance between performing the task at hand and maintaining control over my racing heart and exposed identity. The thrill of being caught, of being seen, made my pulse pound. Each interaction, each fleeting glance, intensified the tension, creating a suspenseful undercurrent that left me both terrified and exhilarated. By the time the party officially began, I had adapted slightly to the surreal reality of the situation. I had learned to walk gracefully in the heels, to adjust my posture to mimic natural confidence, and to control my breathing enough to avoid drawing unwanted attention. But beneath the surface, the storm of emotions raged on: fear, excitement, shame, desire, all interwoven into a tense, electric experience that left me trembling with anticipation. And then came the moment that would change everything. The doorbell rang, signaling the arrival of the first guests. My heart leapt into my throat. The party was beginning, and I would have to step fully into this world, into the dress, into the role, into a reality where everyone could see me as someone I had never dared to be before. The moment the first guests arrived, my nerves hit a new high. The doorbell's chime echoed like a countdown in my chest, and I froze in the hallway, gripping the sides of the pink dress. Dad gave me a reassuring nod, but it did nothing to ease the storm raging inside me. I took a deep breath, forced my shoulders back, and stepped into the living room, heels clicking sharply against the hardwood floor. Immediately, I felt the eyes on me. Lily's friends smiled and waved, chatting amongst themselves, oblivious to the tension coiling in my chest. But some glances lingered, quick, subtle, measuring looks that made my stomach twist. Was it admiration, curiosity, or suspicion? I couldn't tell. My heartbeat thudded painfully as I moved through the crowd, offering to help serve drinks and pass plates. Every movement was deliberate. The swish of the skirt with each step, the wobble in my heels, the delicate arch of my back, it all felt magnified. I tried to appear casual, but my hands shook slightly whenever I reached for something. One of Lily's friends, Megan, noticed. "Careful there, Alex," she said teasingly, her eyes sparkling with amusement. "Those heels aren't easy." I forced a laugh, nodding, but inside, panic mingled with thrill. Every comment, every glance, reminded me of how exposed I was. I was Alex, helping with the party, but I was also Alex in Lily's dress, vulnerable and transformed, teetering on the edge of discovery. Then it happened. A loud crash came from the kitchen. My heart leapt into my throat. I rushed over, only to see one of the cups had toppled, spilling punch across the floor. The girls giggled, but my mind raced. I bent down to clean it up, heels wobbling precariously. One wrong step, and I could fall right here, in front of everyone. As I balanced the cup in my hand, Dad appeared behind me, his presence grounding me slightly. "Careful, Alex," he said, a hint of sternness in his tone. "Don't let anything happen to the dress." I nodded quickly, cheeks burning. The combination of fear and exhilaration made my pulse race. I couldn't believe how much this outfit, once just a silly dress belonging to my sister, had transformed me. Each swish of the skirt, each click of the heels, made me feel both empowered and exposed. Then a voice cut through my thoughts. "Wow, you actually pull it off." It was Emma. My heart nearly stopped. She was early. I hadn't expected her until later, and the thought of being caught like this made me dizzy with panic. I turned slowly to face her, trying to mask my terror with a calm smile. "Hi, Emma, surprise?" My voice sounded shaky even to me. Her eyes scanned me from head to toe, and I felt my secret life laid bare under her gaze. "You're wearing Lily's dress?" she asked, a mixture of shock, amusement, and curiosity in her tone. I swallowed hard, trying to explain, but words failed me. I opened my mouth, closed it, then gestured vaguely toward Dad. It's for Lily's party. Dad wanted me to help." Emma raised an eyebrow but didn't move. Her silence stretched, each second amplifying my anxiety. I could feel every heartbeat echoing through my chest, every flutter of the skirt against my legs magnified in my awareness. The sensation of the heels, once a thrill, now felt like a precarious tightrope over a chasm of embarrassment. Suddenly, a loud cheer erupted from across the room. One of Lily's friends had started a game, drawing everyone's attention. I seized the opportunity to move, my heels clicking faster as I hurried to join the group. But as I turned, my heel caught on the edge of a rug. I stumbled, arms flailing, and nearly collided with a table stacked with snacks. Emma gasped, stepping forward instinctively, but I managed to regain my balance at the last moment. My face burned red, but inside, a strange exhilaration surged. The fear of being caught, combined with the thrill of performing in the dress, created a dizzying mix of emotions I hadn't felt before. Trying to steady myself, I bent to pick up a fallen napkin. That's when it happened. My wig, which I had carefully adjusted in the bathroom earlier, slipped slightly, revealing the roots of my natural hair.
Panic seized me.
Would Emma notice? Would she see through the illusion? I froze, holding my breath, praying she wouldn't. But then, she smiled, softly, strangely approvingly. "You look different," she said, her tone gentle but layered with something I couldn't quite read. My chest heaved in relief, and yet the tension didn't leave. As the party progressed, I found myself moving through a delicate dance. Every interaction was a test. Each compliment, each question about the decorations or the drinks, was a potential minefield. I had to navigate carefully, balancing my natural self with a transformed persona, all while managing the curious eyes of Lily's friends and the knowing gaze of Emma. The night deepened, and the stakes rose. Dad called for everyone to gather for cake, and I felt a cold wave of dread. I was now center stage, everyone looking at me as I carried the cake. The weight of the dress, the precarious heels, the sweat on my palms, it all intensified the suspense. I took a deep breath, stepped forward, and tried to walk with as much grace as possible. Then the unthinkable happened. The edge of the cake tray tilted, sending a small smear of frosting onto the front of my dress. Gasps echoed around the room. I froze, horror-struck, but Emma's hand was suddenly on mine, steadying the tray. "It's okay," she whispered. "You've got this." Her words grounded me, but the adrenaline coursing through my veins made my heart pound uncontrollably. Every step, every gesture, felt magnified. The dress clung to me in ways that made me acutely aware of every motion, every shift in weight. The heels felt higher, the skirt heavier, the world sharper and more intense. Then Dad called everyone to sing "Happy Birthday," and I realized I was trapped in the center, holding the cake, with everyone looking at me. The moment was surreal, terrifying, exhilarating, and exposing me completely. I had never felt so vulnerable, so alive. As the song ended, Lily's friends clapped, some teasingly, some admiringly. I smiled, shaking slightly, trying to appear confident. Emma leaned closer, her eyes twinkling. "You're really pulling it off," she murmured. My pulse raced. Her approval, even whispered, sent a shiver down my spine. But just as I started to relax slightly, I felt a tug at my skirt. One of the younger kids, curious and unknowing, had grabbed the hem. I stumbled, nearly losing balance, the cake tilting dangerously. Time seemed to slow. Would I fall? Would I ruin the cake? Would everyone see the truth behind my transformation? In that suspended moment, I realized something profound. The dress, the heels, the makeup, the exposure, it wasn't just about punishment or embarrassment. It was about confronting a hidden side of myself, a side I had kept locked away. And now, with every eye on me, I had no choice but to embrace it fully, to perform, to survive, to live in this suspended, thrilling reality. I caught the tray just in time, stabilizing it with trembling hands. The room erupted in applause and laughter, the tension breaking slightly. I exhaled, heart hammering, every muscle trembling from the ordeal. But beneath the relief, a deeper thrill remained, the intoxicating blend of fear, exposure, and exhilaration that came from stepping fully into a world I had never dared enter before. Emma's gaze lingered on me, unblinking, assessing, yet approving. My heart skipped. There was an unspoken acknowledgement in her eyes, a recognition of something more profound than mere clothes or performance. I was Alex, yes, but I was also something else now, something transformed, something exposed, yet empowered. And just as I allowed myself a brief moment of pride, I heard a soft gasp from the doorway. My stomach dropped. Someone else had arrived, unexpected, unplanned, and potentially threatening to reveal everything. The suspense hung thick in the air. Every step, every movement, every glance could change the course of the night. And in that moment, I understood fully. The secret life I had stepped into with Dad's coercion was no longer just a private experiment. It was a high-stakes performance, and the consequences of discovery were only just beginning. I froze at the sound of the soft gasp from the doorway. My heart lurched painfully, each beat thundering in my ears. The room, filled with laughter and chatter just moments ago, seemed to shrink around me. Every eye was no longer a background detail. They were sharp, alert, assessing. I turned slowly, careful not to make sudden movements in the heels that had already betrayed me more than once tonight. Standing there was someone I hadn't expected, Lily's older brother, Jason. His expression was unreadable, a mix of surprise and curiosity, and that alone sent a chill down my spine. Emma stepped closer, subtly shielding me with her presence, but her eyes were wide, filled with that same mix of shock and amusement I had glimpsed before. I felt a cold knot of dread twist in my stomach. What would Jason think? Would he figure it out instantly? Would this ruin everything? The careful balance I had tried to maintain, the secret I had so desperately clung to? Hi, I stammered, my voice trembling despite my attempt at calm. I felt the weight of the dress, the heels digging into my feet, the wig slightly off from earlier. Every detail screamed vulnerability. Every movement felt magnified. Jason stepped a little closer, tilting his head. Alex, is that you? His tone wasn't mocking, but it carried a curiosity that felt almost invasive. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. Yes, I managed to croak, forcing a smile that probably didn't reach my eyes. Just helping with the party. The room felt suffocating. The party, which had been a whirlwind of nerves and adrenaline, suddenly froze in slow motion. I could see every person turn subtly to look at me, the whispers beginning to ripple through the crowd like waves. My stomach churned with a mix of fear and exhilaration. Emma's hand found mine, squeezing gently. He's okay, she whispered, though I wasn't sure if it was meant for me or for the gathering audience. I nodded, trying to draw courage from her presence. The strange mix of support and judgment in her gaze both calmed and unsettled me. Jason took another step, and I felt the tension tighten around my chest. That dress, it's Lily's, isn't it? He asked, voice low, but deliberate. The question hung in the air like a suspended blade. I hesitated, words failing me. The truth, unspoken yet glaring, filled the room. I could feel the stares, the measuring eyes, the invisible weight of everyone assessing my every choice, my every secret. The thrill and shame collided violently inside me. I wanted to vanish, to flee, but the heels beneath me anchored me in place. Yes, I finally admitted, my voice barely audible. Dad made me wear it, just for the party. Jason raised an eyebrow, a half-smile playing on his lips. Interesting, his tone was neither judgmental nor kind, but the ambiguity was worse than any verdict. My mind raced through every possible outcome. What if he told someone? What if he laughed at me? What if this secret, my secret life, was exposed to the world? I tried to steady myself, adjusting the dress and brushing imaginary lint off my skirt. Every small movement felt monumental, every shift of weight in the heels a reminder of my precarious position. I glanced at Emma, hoping for reassurance, and saw a small nod. Her eyes told me she was on my side, but even her presence couldn't dissolve the knot of fear twisting in my gut. Jason's gaze lingered on me a moment longer. Then, unexpectedly, he grinned. Well, you're braver than I thought. He stepped back slightly, letting the tension loosen just enough for me to catch my breath. But the relief was fragile, hanging by a thread. I exhaled slowly, trying to steady my shaking hands. The party continued around us, yet the atmosphere had shifted. Whispers buzzed quietly, eyes darting in my direction more often than before. I felt every pair of eyes, every judgment, every hidden comment like a brush of fire against my skin. Emma leaned closer, whispering, "You handled that really well." Her words were soft, but their effect was profound. For a brief moment, I felt pride, a sense of accomplishment despite the humiliation. Yet beneath that, a deeper, more dangerous thrill lingered. The intoxicating, terrifying realization that this secret side of me had been revealed, even if partially, and that I had survived. And then, before I could fully relax, another sound pierced the room, the unmistakable chime of the front doorbell. My blood ran cold. Who else could it be? Another guest? Or worse, someone who might uncover everything? Dad glanced toward the door, smiling politely, unaware of the storm raging in my mind. I could feel every eye on me again, my secret life teetering dangerously on the edge of exposure. The heels beneath me felt higher, the dress tighter, the air heavier. I was trapped in this delicate balance between thrill and terror, performance and reality. The room seemed to hold its breath along with me, the suspense thick enough to taste. I took a deep breath, bracing myself for whatever, or whoever, was about to cross the threshold. My heart raced, adrenaline surging, and in that split second, I realized that nothing would ever be the same. Because in that moment, I wasn't just Alex helping with the party. I was Alex in a dress, on display, balancing on the razor's edge of exposure, vulnerability, and exhilaration. And the next few moments, just beyond the door, would determine everything. The door slowly creaked open. I could see a shadow in the doorway, tall, imposing, and entirely unknown. My breath caught in my throat. Would this person see the truth? Would they shatter the carefully constructed illusion? Time slowed. The crowd's murmurs faded to a distant hum. The heels beneath me anchored me, yet felt impossibly fragile. The dress swirled slightly, with a nervous shift of my weight. And then the shadow stepped forward, crossing the threshold into the room. And that was where the story paused, hanging in the balance between exposure and survival, secrecy and revelation, thrill and terror.